We have liftoff. Monday Night Live. It's the Power Hour. I'm Robbie Krager, the Flip Flop Flipper.
Hey,
I
guys.
don't know if it's live yet or not, but that's McKenna Krager. Is it live, Adon?
We're live and we're ready to go. Good to see you guys. Hopefully you've come with some questions for today. I think we've got one viewer right now, but hopefully that ticks up as we gather in an audience here. But today we're talking about our new school community that we're building, the goals of the community, what we're going to be doing on there, the value we're going to bring to people, how we're going to grow the community. We want to be the biggest real estate group on the platform, so we need your help to do that. And then we also are answering questions on how to flip real estate, how to do rentals, how to do subject to seller financing. Anything you guys want to know about, we're happy to talk about. So send your questions to us and let's get going.
Yeah, guys, the way this works, the more questions you ask, the better it goes for us. I mean, we can talk back and forth with each other, but really what we want to do is provide value to you guys. So we want to answer your questions. If you've got questions about a deal you're working on, if you've just got questions about a deal structure or a way that you want to find real estate. So I know that inside of the school app right now, the people are asking about us talking about DSCR loans and subject to and stuff like that. So I think we'll need to shoot some long content on that. But if we have questions that are specific about those kind of things, then we'll do our best to answer them. And we've done probably just about between McKenna and I and Adon, we've probably done just about every kind of real estate investing that you guys will want to talk about.
Well, I was wondering, have you ever done a DSCR loan? Like, have you successfully gotten one before?
So I don't borrow money.
Yeah.
So I can say with the resounding no, I've never done a DSCR loan that I can think of. I mean, the amount of loans that I've done in general, though, it's very, very limited. So, but a DSCR loan just means that you have a rental property. So I've done lots and lots of rental properties. I've gotten them fixed up and cash flowing. And I'm sure that any property that I've got in Florida, the bank would bend over backwards to give me a DSCR loan.
Well, I've tried to do them before, and I guess I've tried one time, and I struggled with, I was not sure of what income I needed to show versus what the income the property needed to show, because they're advertised as you don't need to be making money. It's just based on the income of the house. In my one experience, that wasn't the case. They wanted to see my tax returns. I didn't qualify.
Really?
Because I wasn't making any money, because all my money goes into houses.
I thought, I mean, the way that I understand it, and maybe we can have Bill Halleck or one of the other mortgage guys come in and talk to us about this. But the way that I understand it is that a DSCR loan is supposed to look exclusively really to the property. Probably there are some minimums, right? Like, so you have to have a minimum credit score and maybe you have to have a minimum income, but they're supposed to look to the rental revenue and say, all right, if you're bringing in $2,000 a month on this piece of real estate, we'll lend you enough money that it costs, slightly less than $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then it should be an easy loan to get. Right?
Yeah. Bill, if you're here, let us know how they work.
Yeah.
Loans we have done, though, we've closed a lot of seller financing, both selling properties and me more so buying properties. I've got 2 right now that I still own that are seller financed, and the house I'm moving into is seller financed from him. And it is just a great way to structure properties. And I know some of you guys were asking about that in school, which the link is in the bio if you want to get in on the conversation there. It's a free community, so click the link, join. Doesn't cost you anything, and make a post, introduce yourself. But anyways, the way subject to works is you find or seller financing, which is different than subject to. But subject to, you're taking over an existing mortgage. They went and got the magical 3% loan back in 2020, and now they need to move for whatever reason, and they're struggling to sell their house. It is very achievable to tell people, hey, I'll buy your house and I'm going to give you a lump sum payment of 50 grand, but I want to keep your mortgage in place. That magic 3% where the payments are super low, the debt is basically free. You are allowed to take over those loans, put a renter in there, continue to pay the mortgage. And it's a really good way to do a house. And I saw on your channel, I think, that with the transaction coordinator. Was her name Jennifer?
Yeah, Jennifer.
You know, I think she mentioned either on here or at the seminar where we met them that they have done 1,000 subject to transactions, and never once has the bank said no. So, and I know that's a big fear for people.
It's called the due on sale clause.
Due on sale clause. It's in all the mortgages. People get scared about that when they don't know how the process works. But Jennifer has done 1,000 transactions, and the bank has never once said no to her.
Yeah.
The bank only cares about making money. They want their payments, and if they're getting their payments, they don't really care.
And we've been buying houses subject to for really over 20 years. So
Yeah.
I was doing it before people called it sub 2. Back when we were doing it, we were taking people who were going to lose their house in foreclosure and saying, listen, we'll reinstate your loan. So we'll bring it back to current.
Yeah.
And we'll start making the payments, and that'll increase your credit. It'll save you from a foreclosure on your record, and we'll put a renter in there, or we'll do whatever we're going to do with the property. I mean, it was pretty loose knit, right? Like there was a lot of trust that needed to happen, but basically I was doing it with people who were in desperate need of selling their property, and say they had a foreclosure next week, and I could come in and reinstate the loan and start making the monthly payments and get them out of foreclosure, save their credit, do all of those good things. But basically they didn't have anything to lose either, because I was going to hand them some cash. They were going to give me a deed. They're far better off than letting it go to the foreclosure sale and being wiped out completely. Now,
how easy is that to do? Like finding the people?
Well,
is that offer pretty easy to sell? I imagine it is.
It was a pretty easy offer back in the day.
Yeah.
Where there wasn't a lot of equity in these homes that I was buying there. So if it went to the foreclosure sale, the bank was going to get it back.
Yeah.
So they were definitely going to get wiped out. Why we would take it over, even this is, going back 20 years, we'd take over an 8% loan because they'd been making payments on it for 5 or 6 years, and we could rent it out for a little bit more than what the monthly payment was. And we didn't have to qualify for a loan, and we didn't have to come out of pocket a whole big ton of money either. So we just had to bring a small amount of money to bring them current. And again, these were people that were about to be, that the hammer was being dropped on them. They're going to lose their house to the foreclosure sale and be wiped out. I think the industry has changed now. If you are selling a home and you did what you said, got the loan in 2020, 2021, so you're at sub 4.
Yeah.
So basically, like you said, with adjusted for inflation, free money, right?
Yeah.
And the new buyer's going to come in and have to start a new loan, pay all of the costs, give you some money, pay your realtor.
Yeah.
You're better off as a seller. I'm better off as a seller who's got that kind of loan. One, either just stay in the house, don't sell, and keep it. Or let's say I've got to move out of state. I can sell the house subject to my loan. I'm going to get more money at the closing table. Very often, I think you could do that without hiring a realtor, without having to pay those costs. So you could save on a lot of those transaction costs. And so for us, the buyer, we come in and we take over a loan that's in good standing. They're not behind on the mortgage. And we get this 3% money, this magical money, the free money that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And the person gets a bigger piece of cash, right? A lot of times I see people buying things subject to where there's no equity at all. And the property's worth 300 and they owe 300. And so in order for that seller to sell the property, they'd have to actually come to the table with cash.
Yeah.
But there are people like us, real estate investors, that see the value in that cheap money and know that real estate goes up over time. So if we can come in and buy the thing from them for 300, or say even maybe 325, and we're going to give them 20 grand plus some closing costs, right? They walk with 20 grand. Whereas before, if they sold it on the open market using a realtor, they lose those commissions, they lose the closing costs, they lose all of this stuff. And they have to actually come to the table with money. So
and when your equity's 10 grand, you're going to lose money.
Yeah,
you're gonna lose money.
Right. If you owe 300 and you think you're gonna sell your house for 325 and that you're gonna make some money, I got news for you. You're losing money in that situation. 25 grand isn't gonna cover your closing costs when you pay a realtor, and when you pay the back taxes, and when you pay all of the things that come along with it.
And honestly, when you're doing these subject to deals, guys, the biggest barrier is just educating the people on what the heck you want to do.
Yeah.
People think it's illegal. They think it's crazy. They've never heard of anything like it. But if you can educate them and just talk to them about, hey, you're going to get a check. I'm just going to keep your mortgage. You know, and there's different ways to structure it depending on liability and things like that that you don't really need to get into with them. But if you can educate them and they have no equity, it is such an easy sell after they understand that it is legal, it is allowed. They're going to make money in other ways they wouldn't. So it's like,
And then
how hard is it to sell someone on, I will give you money that you wouldn't get anyways?
and then you can set it up. The industry has changed, right? So we were buying back in the day people who were going to lose everything.
Yeah.
And they had nothing to lose. Now you're buying from people who have good credit, they're making their payments, but you can set it up so that you're doing the auto pay, they're able to see it each month that you've paid.
Yep.
You can set it up so that if you don't make the payment, it can be an automatic default back to them. I mean, you can set things up in a way that keeps it super safe for the person who's selling you the house. And what's cool about our school community is that we have experts inside of the school community that are far better at this than maybe McKenna and I are. For instance, Jennifer, the person who we just did the video on just last week, I think it dropped. She's a transaction coordinator and has done thousands of these things. And so she can help you guys inside of the school community answer these questions. I think we might have a question. Don?
Will mortgage company still run your credit, or is it just a smooth transaction?
No.
Yes. So the question is,
Yeah.
will the mortgage company run your credit, or is it just a transaction? The mortgage company doesn't even need to know who you are.
Yep.
You're not qualifying for this loan. You're not going through the process of doing a formal application with the bank. You're not doing any of that stuff. So what's that mean? It means you don't even have to have a job. You don't have to have good credit. It really doesn't matter your qualifications.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're buying it ideally, and you should do this. You're buying it in an LLC, you're buying it in a land trust, you're buying it in a series corporation. There's a lot of different ways to structure your ownership, but it's not Robbie Krager or McKenna Krager that owns this house. It's, Land Trust 5555 that nobody knows who that is. The bank doesn't know who that is, and that's fine. And they don't need to know. As long as you're making your payments to the bank, they're going to be happy campers. That's really all they care about. We got another question, Don.
Have either of you dealt with properties in PR where there are additional buildings encroaching, or in our case entirely on a parcel? We're getting surveys done on our parcel, which include a building that a neighbor is using as a warehouse, and they're being very combative. How do you approach this?
So they're saying that they have a piece of property and the neighbor has a building on their property. Yeah. So they're trying to steal their land, basically. I haven't dealt with that.
I have
dealt with that.
Yeah, we've dealt with it. We had a house in Catania that had a garage. It was our house, our garage, or at least we thought it was our garage, and our garage went over into, it was actually the government's land. So the government had an easement. Whoever had the house before us just stole the easement, put the garage up. Looked like we had a beautiful little 2-car garage to our 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. And we ended up having to tear down half of the garage.
Whoa.
So that was how we fixed that. And we did that so that the house would qualify for an FHA loan. So we could have kept the garage and no one was probably going to say anything if we were selling it to a cash buyer or if we were going to sell it with seller financing. But our buyer was an FHA buyer, which was great. It was going to cash us out. We had renovated the house. It was a true flip. And we ended up making some money, but because we had to tear down the garage, we got a little bit less. We made a little bit less because it had that. I think it was probably like a $6,000 or $7,000 expense right at the end.
And you're losing value because you're going from 2-car to 1-car
value. And so I think that's more common in Puerto Rico than in most parts of the world. So we obviously do a lot of stuff in Puerto Rico, and we've seen these things happen again and again. So
have you gotten surveys here in Puerto Rico often?
We get surveys when we have things like this that come up, that pop up and you see them. It's not our habit to get a survey on a house that's been sitting on a piece of land for 60 or 70 years.
Yep.
And that's been something that's been true about the way we've bought houses for years. I mean, if I'm in a PUD, a planned urban development, and the houses are all on their lot.
Yeah.
Haven't ever needed to take the expense of having these surveys. Puerto Rico, if you come and you see the real estate, they kind of just can build and build and build, and they build out, they build up, they do really anything they want.
Yep.
And it does cause problems.
So, and I think they said they're getting a survey, right, Adon?
So how would you combat this?
The first thing I do, you get your survey, and then the next step, you don't want to litigate. You don't want to go through that process. You might have to, but the first, or I guess the second step, is talking to the neighbor. Say, hey, I have the survey. You can even approach them and ask them to split it with you before you get it. Say, hey, I'm not sure where the boundary is. I'd like to get a survey. Would you split it with me 50-50, and make it a cooperative thing? Probably the neighbor knows that they're stealing the space, so they might not want that to happen. But once you have your survey, you go to them, say, I have a survey. This is my land. If you want them out of there, the easiest thing to do is just to negotiate with them and say, hey, I'd like you to stop using it, see if that works. If they don't stop, you could even try calling the police. I don't know if that'll get you anywhere in Puerto Rico.
And lawsuits are difficult
And
here.
lawsuits
I
are
mean,
tough.
you know, these kind of things, you want to do this due diligence before you buy the property.
Yeah.
So that you don't wind up.
But they have
in
the
that
property
situation.
now. So
But if you already own the property and someone's encroaching on your land, then yes, you need to go to them and you need to tell them that they need to fix the problem. I was on the other side. Like, we bought a property where our property was very clearly encroaching on the other person's land, and the fix was pretty easy.
yeah.
Tear it down, right?
Yep.
Like, there was another fix. There was a much more painful fix. We could have gone and dealt with the government over there in Catania, and we could have probably eventually 4, 5, 6, 10 years from now bought the little piece of property that our garage encroached on.
Yep.
And if I was living in the house, that's probably what I would have done. But because we were trying to sell it, we were trying to turn the money and make some money.
Yeah.
We just tore it down. We just fixed the problem by making the problem go away.
But if you talk to your neighbor, most likely you can fix this just between the two of you, and that'll be the easiest. Yeah, Adon, you a follow up on that?
Ken Jackson asks, hey guys, I'm interested in sub 2 in Fajardo, Luquillo areas. Has the sub 2 non-renewal impact the market on the island?
What's the sub 2 non-renewal impact, Kim? If you could elaborate on that. I'm not familiar with what you're asking there. We've done sub 2 deals on the island. I've been successful with it. And
Your house was sub 2.
yeah, Adon's house, Adon's mother sold me a house subject to a mortgage, and we set it up as a lease option. And it was a situation where we brought the loan current.
Yep.
And then we paid the bank every month that we were there directly. That was how we set up the rent. And then
The owner,
The OZ non-renewal.
the opportunity zone non-renewal, I don't think that'll affect
I'm
sub
still
2 at
unclear
all.
with I still don't know what the OZ non-renewal is. So
I think he's saying
She-
it's Kim,
Kim,
not Jim. Sorry, Kim, got that wrong. I think that Kim is saying that the OZ 10-year period is not being renewed. So, which is maybe conflating two different things, but there's the 10-year period's not going to be extended, so it's winding down and OZ funds are going to go away. And I think she's asking, will that affect sub 2? And I don't think that it will at all. If I understand your question right, they're not attached to each other at all. Sub 2 is private through the bank. It's individual mortgages that you're taking over. OZ, on the other hand, is a government program where 98% of Puerto Rico is an OZ fund or OZ opportunity zone. Yes. And they just don't connect. So even with the non-renewal, you'll be fine. Now, how do you title your subject twos here in Puerto Rico when you're like Adon's mom's house? How did you
I left
that
it.
one?
I left it in Adon's mother's name.
Okay.
So we did it as a lease option. We signed a lease with her with an option to purchase, and we had a period of years. I think we had a 10-year option to purchase.
Okay.
And our purchase price was basically pay off the loan that was in her name. And as soon as that was done, we got the deed. And we were paying down every month, just like on a regular loan. And her loan was pretty good. It wasn't 3%, but it was under 5.
Yeah.
I think it was 4.5, maybe. It was a really good loan. And we got to live in an amazing house and make the payment to the bank and didn't have to qualify for the loan. One of the reasons that we decided to sell the house rather than refinance it was, as our time was coming to an end and we were going to need to refinance, interest rates had kind of skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So it was going to be a painful refinance for us. So that just sort of facilitated our need to sell the house. And actually, we ended up selling the house because someone just gave us
A better deal.
more money than, well, looking back on it, we should have held out for more money, but we weren't even for sale. They literally showed up to the house and offered us some money, and it was a lot of money. And we thought, we're in real estate, we'll be able to replace the house.
Yeah.
And that was a big mistake. One of my big regrets on the island is selling that house. I wish I hadn't done it.
I do too. I love that house.
I
It's
think
great.
I think everyone in this room did too. Don loved that house too.
Yeah.
Do we have more questions? No?
Hey guys, ask some questions. Also, if you're liking the conversation, we talk about this all the time on our school community. Links in the description. We'd love to see you there. We're trying to have the biggest community on the platform, and what we're trying to talk about there is exactly this. It's the meat and potatoes of real estate investing. We're happy to talk about big picture stuff, how you get into it. We're also happy to get very granular. We're happy to talk about specific deals. I'm not sure who posted about the encroachment, but that's something where if you post it in our community, you'll have 10 people telling you their opinions and advice, and we have lawyers that specialize it. And
yeah, I think that's what's so cool about a community like that, is that
the guys from
the guys from the community. So Mark, if you post it inside of the community, it won't just be McKenna and I who are answering you.
Yep.
Hopefully the way that this works is that we will have some attorneys on the island. We'll have some surveyors who will be able to answer these questions as well. So you'll get more than just Robbie Krager or McKenna Krager's opinion.
Yep, absolutely.
Mike Terry asks, hey guys, do you have experience purchasing a property using the San Juan municipality Estorbo Público process? Your experience, timeline process.
Restore Publico.
Estorbo Público.
I've tried to buy. So these are basically government repoed houses. And I've tried at least a half a dozen times. I've gone under contract with the people who were hired by the government to liquidate these houses. I've put up deposit money. I've signed contracts. For me, nothing has ever come of it. I gave up on it at least a few years ago. I just stopped doing it because I tried it, I think, at least 6 times. It never happened for me.
And you did it in different cities too,
right?
Right?
Had it in multiple cities, multiple occasions. I met with the mayors of Luquillo, for instance. There was a house next to the property that I owned, and I met with the mayor, and he said, no problem, you're going to get it. I need 30 days. I met with him every month for 6 or 8 months, and it was no problem. I never got the house. I just got continually told, no problem, it's going to be 30 days. And it just wasn't something that was worth it to me. So as a real estate investor, I'm pretty fickle. Like so I look at tons of real estate, but I don't want to look at stuff that I can't buy.
Yeah.
So when I get told on 6 different occasions in a couple of different towns that this shit isn't going to work for me,
Yeah.
I stop that. I mean, there's no point beating my head against that wall. I'm beating my head against the wall in several other fronts. I prefer to there is enough great deals on the island of Puerto Rico that I don't have to go and chase down people that are never going to sell me the house.
And
So,
something I'd like to add to that too.
Municipality foreclosure process does work.
Adonis saying the municipality foreclosure process. Oh, you're talking about going to the foreclosure sale. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'd rather go to the foreclosure sale at the courthouse steps where the bank is taking the property through foreclosure.
Yep.
And I know absolutely that if I'm the winning bidder, that I get the property, right? Like, so that's what we've done in the States for years and years. We like to go to the courthouse and buy those properties because that's a sure thing. I don't have to negotiate with anybody.
Yep.
I mean, you get to you get to know going in a minimum number that you're going to be able to bid. And if you're thinking that you can pay more than that minimum number, it's a great opportunity to go and buy. So
I'd like to say, going back just one subject too, one of the biggest things that, a lot of my friends have looked at flipping houses. A lot of people have asked me about it. How do I get into it? How do I scale it? I've done one house, McKenna. How do I do 10? How do I do 25? Something I notice a lot is that people get fixated on properties they can't buy. They see a property and they go, I know that that'd be a great deal. I have this thing already planned in my head. It's going to be the most beautiful home you've ever seen, the most beautiful storefront, but they can't buy it.
Yeah.
And it's more daydreaming at that point. And that's something that it's kind of hard to shake, but that's
time wasting.
It's time wasting. It's imagination. And that separates you from doing 2 deals a year from 20 deals a year. The people that are doing a deal a month, 2 deals a month, they are looking at hundreds of properties. And the moment that there's a barrier that they can't cross, i.e. what's the program called? The
Restoro Público.
Yeah, where they aren't really serious about selling. If you're not serious about selling, I'm not serious about buying. I'm looking at the next thing. And that is how you get more deals. If you just keep hitting your head against the wall, you maybe will get one, but you'll have missed 10 that you would have liked. We have another question.
From Peeps Pays For It on Instagram says, what are the key rules on seller financing? What are the don'ts?
The key rules on seller financing.
I love seller financing. My 2 best deals are seller financed to me right now. About to be my 3rd, the house I'm living in, seller financed. And it is just a beautiful way to buy a home. I like to tell people, if the 3 points that you're negotiating with, if you're the buyer, you want the lowest interest rate, and it can go all the way to 0. We see that all the time. People get these deals. It sounds crazy. And it sounds crazy when people pitch it to me, because people ask me all the time, I'd like to buy your house, McKenna. Yep. Can you do 0 down, 0% interest over 20 years? I'm like, no, but do people say yes to that? And people do. So it can go to 0. And then also, as a buyer, you're looking for the longest amount of time possible. If I'm the seller, I want you to pay me back in a year, 2 years. If I'm the buyer, I want to pay you back in 25 years. I want you to be an actual bank where I can just make payments forever. And then you're also looking for the lowest amount down if you're the buyer. You can come into these deals sometimes with 0 down, 0 interest at 20 years, just because you're solving someone's problem. And that's a crazy Goldilocks deal. It almost probably doesn't exist, but people fight for those things. And then as the seller, you're looking to do the opposite, wouldn't you say, where you...
Yeah. And the question is, what are the rules or what? So it's, you negotiate the best deal that you can.
Yep.
And for years and years, we looked at real estate from let's buy it for the least amount of money that we possibly can, because we're cash buyers. We don't really borrow money from the banks. And really, for the last 15 years, we haven't borrowed money at all. So we were just actually paying cash. So we had only a certain amount of money, right? And we needed to get the very best deal we could. So we had to buy it really low at a cash price. Now, what's happened with these historically low interest rates, people can sell subject to or with seller financing, and they can... A good example of that would be someone got a 3% loan and they want to sell me the house, and they want to make 2% above. So they're at 3% from the bank, and they want to tack on 2, and I'm paying something extra. I'd take that deal.
Yeah.
5% money is still great money for me.
And you're bringing 20,000 to the table.
Bringing very little money to the table. So you can now create deals with the seller financing and subject to stuff that just didn't exist. It didn't work years ago. So again, the sub 2 deals I used to do were always people that were in foreclosure. Now there's a whole new system in buying these sub 2 deals where people aren't in foreclosure, but they need to move. And so they're motivated. And if you can fix their problem. So I guess the answer is, there's no steadfast rules. Negotiate the best deal that you can for yourself. But it's definitely a beautiful way to become a real estate investor and to take advantage of historically low interest rates if it's buying subject to, but seller financing too. I mean, I bought a beautiful piece of land in Nuguabo. It was 10 acres on the ocean, and we got it for $850,000. I put $150,000 down and 0% interest. Just started making them payments. And
Wow.
actually, when they accepted my offer of the 0 interest loan, I then backed up and said, well, I'm going to need 9 months of no interest while I do some development. So, they agreed to that too. And then
Amazing.
we ended up selling that piece of property, and we sold it with seller financing as well because we had free money.
Yeah. What were your terms when you sold it?
My terms, I got a lot more money down. So I basically pulled all the money out and got paid and let them take over the mortgage with the 0 interest and go on with them. So
Okay.
I think
So
I'm
you
still
just
owed
took a
20 or
payout.
30 grand, but I basically got paid out up front,
Okay.
and I bought it for 8 and sold it for 1.4, something like that.
That's pretty
Don, we
good.
have another question. It was a pretty good deal.
I'd
And that
love to
was the
make-
first time I got 0% interest. I love that 0% interest
So you made
as a buyer.
600,000 on the 0% interest seller financing that you brought $100,000 to.
Yeah, we made
It's pretty good.
we made about $500,000 or $600,000 on a $100,000 cash investment.
Man.
Rivera asks, Rob, what are your thoughts on wooden homes? Are they worth it if the price is right, or it's just too risky?
Wooden homes in Puerto Rico or
Well,
wooden
Florida.
homes in Florida?
But most of the country,
Well,
90% of the country is wooden homes. You know, they think that we're weird for building with concrete block in Florida, or here they just pour the concrete. They do all sorts of crazy
Yeah.
stuff here. But
Are flood zones just not a good investment in the areas of Guanaca?
I have a house in a flood zone in Orlando.
Guanaca is the question.
Guanaca.
And where's Guanaca? On the south side of the island, like Cabo Rojo, Guanaca.
Yeah.
Where they had the earthquakes.
Close to it.
Yeah, so I haven't invested there. I don't have a lot of experience with that. I will say this. I wouldn't be afraid to buy a wooden home in a place that has floods and earthquakes and hurricanes if I'm getting a good deal.
Put the deal in the chat. Tell us what you're buying it for, what you need, how much you need to renovate it. You know, what work you need to do and the price you're going to pay, and what is it worth after. And are you going to sell it? Are you going to Airbnb it? Is it going to be a long-term rental? If you put the details in the chat, we'll kind of analyze it for you.
Before we move on
break
to the
it
next
down.
question, let me add to that too. I would look at it like this. If I can buy a house in an area that's got these problems, I would expect to buy it cheaper.
Yeah.
A lot cheaper, right? So I'm thinking if I can buy a house and turn it as a flip here in San Juan, and it's a block house, and it's and I'm going to make 30 or 40% on that flip. And now I'm going to go and spend the same or similar amount of dollars down in a place that's a flood zone, that has earthquakes, that it has some significant other problems.
Yeah.
I want to get a significant discount. I want to be rewarded for taking on those problems. So
We're in the
that's-
business of problem solving.
Yeah.
You get paid to solve problems.
that's going to be a theme, you guys.
Yeah.
As a real estate investor, the bigger the problem that you solve, the more money that you should make. So buying a house from someone who's had the roof blown off by a hurricane in a place that floods and a place that has earthquakes, and it's a wood frame house, you're going to make more money.
Yeah.
So I think we got another question. Just spit them out, Anon. You can yell.
Samuel B is it okay to keep leveraging up on debt as long as the rental cash flow is a little bit? It's so tempting to use debt to grow fast.
Well, Samuel, I have 15 doors with debt from a bank, and I make no money from them. Each house makes me on average like $100 a month, and then the air conditioner breaks in one, and that takes the past 2 months of profit from all the houses. I will say, though, I own 15 houses. Actually, it's 13 houses, and one is a triplex, and the appreciation I'm getting on them is incredible. Already, I bought most of them in late 2021, 2022, a little bit in early 2023, and I have on each of those properties I've probably gained 50 grand in appreciation minimum. I'm selling a couple of them, and the appreciation is very nice, but the cash flow is not there when you're spending all of your money on debt, and then you're paying insurance because you have to have insurance if you have debt, and then you have taxes, and it takes up a lot of it. So if you can afford to pay for a new air conditioner when it breaks, to pay for a new roof, let's say you have a tech sales job and you're making $150,000 a year and you want 3 rental properties, it's not a bad way to invest. But if you're trying to live off of this money, I probably wouldn't do it. Now, something you could do, and what you recommended I do, is buy one and flip it, and then take the profits, buy another one and flip that one, take the profits, and then buy the third one and rent it out.
Keep it.
And keep it.
And I think debt is a tool.
Yeah.
And so McKenna uses more debt than I do.
Yeah.
You've been in business only for a couple of years. I would say over the last 15 years, just from what you said, on the 15 houses, you've borrowed more money on those 15 houses
I've got
than
5.
I've borrowed on thousands of houses
Yeah.
over the last 15 years. So we got very debt averse because it crushed us when the market corrected back in 2007 and 2008. We were debt driven business. So we had just borrowed a whole bunch of money.
Yeah.
And then back then we didn't have any rental properties. We didn't have any cash flow coming in. The market changed, and our whole business was built on buy it and sell it, buy it and sell it, buy it and sell it.
Yeah.
And borrowing money in that way was very dangerous. And so it turned me off for a long time. And so our rental portfolio, basically here on the island of Puerto Rico and mostly in the state of Florida, has almost no debt.
Yeah.
So
I've borrowed $5 million in my first, it was maybe my first 18 months of doing properties on my own. I've been working for him since I was 7 years old, collecting rent. I'd crawl up there in my diapers and they'd hand me money and I'd crawl back to the car. But anyway, so in my first 18 months, I'd borrowed $5 million on these properties. Right now, when I have my little equity sheet that I update pretty much monthly, it says that I have about $6.5 million worth of property. And all of these were value add. I bought hoarder houses, 2 or 3 crack houses, really bad houses that I fixed up and turned into rentals. So I got an immediate equity bump up, the day I fixed it. I wasn't buying things that were move-in ready because I just don't think you can make money doing that. But it is possible, and it is,
to add on to that though, you also, before we go to the next question, you also have a special banking relationship.
I have a great banking
your bank
relationship.
was giving you all of the freaking money.
Yeah.
And at very good rates and long-term too. So you had long-term fixed debt at what, 4%, 5% back when you first started?
When I first started, it's a 1-year loan that they automatically flip into a 5-year note for me at market rates, basically. So my debt now, the average across my loans is 7%, which is every house it goes up a little bit because rates have gone up. New loans I get are a little bit over 8, but it's still much better than hard money, much better than private money. I mean, if you're borrowing from a hard money lender, you're probably paying 2 points and 12% in the States, or 4 points and 16% in Puerto Rico, and it gets expensive quick.
Yeah.
And I think we have another question.
Jamie says, have you found permitting process to be different or frustrating in Puerto Rico? And how about the lack of qualified contractors?
Yes. Very frustrating.
And that's true everywhere. The permit process, I think everywhere is
Permitting sucks no matter where you are.
very hard. It's a tax.
And it's always frustrating dealing with contractors. I've been doing this for 26 years. I don't ever remember a time when I was dealing with contractors that I wasn't frustrated with it.
Yeah.
And if there was ever a time when I wasn't frustrated, so I had a good contractor, it was only a matter of time before I became frustrated with those people. But in every situation for 25, 26 years, I'm frustrated with contractors, and I have always been frustrated by the permitting process. Now, I do think that it's more frustrating on the island of Puerto Rico a lot of times. For instance, we loved buying things that were near the ocean when we first came to the island, and the permitting process on that and getting the government to agree to allow you to build things near the ocean, it's really difficult. So we just kind of pulled away from doing those kind of investments, unless they're just, again, you're solving the problem, you get a much bigger lift. So we backed up from doing that. We're like, we like investing in Santurce, where it's much easier to get a permit and you don't have the same problems that you do when you're right on the ocean in Ocean Park, for instance. So yeah, so it's frustrating. Guys, as real estate investors, it's always going to be frustrating for you. And there are three major portions, and they're all equally important to being a real estate investor. You've got to find something really well. You've got to be able to renovate it at a fair price and fast and do good work. And then you've got to be able to sell it. And you're going to have frustrations in all of those. Puerto Rico, it's really easy to buy something really well, like easier to buy a great deal on the island of Puerto Rico than any place I've ever been in my 26 years of doing this. And that's like, I know that today I could go out and look for something and find something that I could increase my net worth by hundreds of thousands of dollars, that I can increase my cash flow by thousands of dollars every month. They're out there now. It's harder to do the contracting. It's harder to do the permitting, and it's way freaking harder to sell the stuff on the back end on the island of Puerto Rico. Go ahead.
My biggest tip for permitting: call the permit office. They're just people. They're people who make up the rules, and they get to tell you what to do. But if you are actually on the phone with them, you can have a conversation, usually that goes very well. Hey, what do I need to do? How do I do it? Can you help me? And people help people. Like, it's, at least in Orlando, it's this mystical process. You go on the online portal. It's very difficult. But then when you call the office, if you can get someone on the phone, suddenly, magically, the process clears up. You have clear action steps of what to do.
Yeah.
In Puerto Rico, it's hard to get someone on the phone. It's hard to find someone who's responsible for it.
But in Puerto Rico, they have gestores. There are people that make a living dealing with this because it is really difficult. And so we've used them, and we've been frustrated by them. But we've also used some gestores where it was like, we had one property in Luquillo where we got a permiso de uso in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Had we done it ourselves, it'd probably take
Months.
us a year.
Yeah.
So
that is something I would pay for every time.
Definitely pay for it. Yeah.
Mike asked, courthouse steps, foreclosures. How can investors see foreclosure pipelines ahead of time to perform the necessary due diligence since it's not allowed after winning the bid?
Mike, is that just in Puerto Rico, or you're talking nationwide?
So I think he's asking just in Puerto Rico, and the foreclosure sale is obviously, it's the hardest and most difficult place for you to buy a property.
Yeah.
And it is not something that you should do without really, really knowing how to dot the I's and cross the T's and what you're getting into. Finding the information about what's going to the foreclosure sale really isn't that difficult. You can go any town, Puerto Rico, and go into the actual courthouse, physically walk in there, and assuming you speak Spanish, you can walk up to the clerk and say, hey, I want to see what's for sale. And they'll give you a list of stuff that's upcoming, and you can start to glean the information. Where it gets very difficult for a guy like me, for instance, who I've been buying houses at the foreclosure sale for over 20 years. And this is our preferred place to buy because I know, one, you can get great deals there. I don't have to negotiate. All I have to do is be willing to pay more than the bank is willing to accept, and then maybe beat someone if there's someone else who also wants the property. So I love buying in these places, but doing the title searches in Central Florida for us is a dream. It's all in the language that we know. My wife can go online, find all of the information, do the title search. I mean, we can prepare for these things and know exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
Here, I have to pay people to do it. So there's a couple of layers to it that are more difficult for us. Mostly it's a language barrier and being able to quickly glean the information from things that are not like readily available. So there's not a great paper trail that's easily available online on the island of Puerto Rico. In Florida, that's different. So it's
quite
super
easy
different
in Florida. Like he was saying earlier, though, too, if you're trying to do your first deal in the foreclosure sale, the risk is high. It's buyer beware. If you buy a dog, you're getting a dog. Like, you get what you pay for. And if you don't know what you're paying for, you still get it. There's no do-overs. You can't get your money back. So
not only that,
it's tough.
No matter where you go to the foreclosure sale.
Yeah.
The regulars there
Yeah, they're mean.
want you to fail. Where McKenna just said people help people, that's true. Not at the foreclosure sale, though. If you show up at the foreclosure sale, if I show up at the foreclosure sale in San Juan, Puerto Rico, there are locals there that are just dying for me to make a mistake and lose hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Because then
And
you'll
they're
never
gonna
come
and
back.
they're gonna laugh about it and love it because I'm never gonna come back.
Yep.
And if you're, like McKenna said, going there to buy your first property, man, you really need to hire the right professionals. You have to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. It's the most dangerous place that you can buy a property. I'm not over stressing that. I promise you guys, the regulars, no matter where you are, mainland or in Puerto Rico,
Yep.
they want you to fail.
But the courthouse people, they make the process, the bankers make the process, and they will talk to you and they will help you because they do want you to buy it.
Yeah.
And they don't care if you win or fail. So they'll give you the information. But like you said, the regulars,
Yeah.
Wait a couple.
And this is
Auctions.
guys coming from someone who's a regular in the state of Florida.
I was
So,
telling a story last night. I was having some margaritas and swimming in the pool, and my friends are buying a house and they got outbid. And they're like, oh, how do we go in there and sabotage their sale? And I'm like, well, the old foreclosure guys, they'd take a bottle of Diet Coke, go to these houses before the auction, spray the ceiling so it looks like there's a roof leak. And then that way they know there isn't a roof problem. They just need to cut out the drywall and put it back. But if you wanted to sabotage a sale, you could do it that way. And we got a good laugh about that. That's the
we heard
foreclosure.
stories. We heard stories that were, fish in the top of the toilet, dead fish in the rafters, and what do you call the AC ductwork?
Yep.
BK asks, I'm interested in financing structures for purchasing a building with a business already in it. Then the second question is, buying a building with intentions of installing commercial business PO boxes, self-storage, laundry. Is financing commercial real estate different or the same way as residential?
It's different in that you can't get a personal loan, really. It's not like a house that you're going to live in. But it's the same in that probably the best structure you can get is seller financing on those properties, don't you think?
Definitely. Yeah, I would be trying to buy those properties using seller financing. And because, and is that BK Breeze asking the question?
Yeah.
So I think BK is talking about investing on the island of Puerto Rico. Because financing is so difficult on the island of Puerto Rico, I push even more for the seller financing stuff because they're basically on a commercial building like that. And we've invested in several here on the island. Your cash or nothing, right?
Yeah.
Like there isn't, at least on a distressed value add building on the island of Puerto Rico, there is no bank loan for that.
There's no easy loans. You can borrow really expensive money or you can get the seller to get you.
Yeah, really expensive private money.
Yeah.
Usually not bank money. And then the seller is your other way to go. So I would really be trying to educate the sellers in the fact that, hey, I could pay you a ridiculously low cash offer, or I'll give you what you're asking, but you just give me my terms.
And BK, the way I would structure that too is if there's a business in the building, find out what their rent is. I'm assuming that you don't get the business, they're leasing it from you. Find out what they're paying so you'll know what you're bringing in every month. And then that can inform your payments. And then depending on other factors in the deal, you probably want your payments to be less than what the business is paying you. And then the business is paying for your seller financing. But if there's opportunities to lease more space, to do value add, to increase your rental payments somehow, you can pay more. And if I was going to do the numbers, let's say someone wants to sell you a building for $1 million, I'd do just what he said. I'd come in, say, hey, I love the building. But the math just doesn't work for me at $1 million. If you want cash, I can give you $400,000. And they're going to laugh at you and they're going to say, get out of my face. And you're like, well, I could pay you $1 million, but I need you to help me with the money. And people that own commercial buildings are probably familiar with seller financing. It's not going to be like a residential seller. The education will be less, but not zero. And then that's when you present your terms. You should already know what the business is paying. The sellers will give you all of this information for due diligence so you can make a good educated offer. and then just come prepared. Say, I'll give you $1 million. I'd like to borrow from you at 0% over 5 years, and this is what I want the payment to be. And that's an offer that works.
And I would say this, those people that are selling those businesses or those buildings that have the cash flow coming from it, they're used to getting those monthly payments.
Yep.
So I think that it's oftentimes easier to buy with seller financing from a guy like me who's got a bunch of doors rented long term and I'm used to getting the cash flow. I actually even sometimes prefer to sell that way.
Yeah.
And so when you are looking at buying something that's cash flowing, those people who are selling that, they're already used to getting paid monthly.
Yep.
So it's a much easier lift for you to get there.
And two, on those buildings, why would the seller do this? Why would they, take terms where I'm only giving them $50,000? You have to remember too, they've had this building for 15 years. They bought it 15 years ago for $100,000, the money that you're giving them. So that profit, it's really the only way they're ever going to be able to sell it for that. They're locking in their gain of equity. And then in, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever it is, they're getting actual cash from you because you are obligated to go and get them out of the deal or renegotiate the terms. But they are locked in at huge profits. Whereas now you're locking in at $1 million, and hopefully in 10 years you can sell it for $2 million to someone. And that is the reason why people do these deals, though. It's a win-win for everyone.
Samuel B asked, did you use all your DSCR loans for your $5 million debt?
I've not done a single DSCR loan. I've tried to do one, and I found it very difficult. I have a bank up in Kentucky that my partner has a really good relationship with. It's a good old boys bank where, I call them up and I say, hey, it's McKenna, and they know who I am. I don't have to give them any information. They know the sound of my voice, and, we can talk about my loans. They know exactly who I am. It's that kind of bank where it's a very small.
It's a unicorn, you guys. It's like something I've never seen. These guys have a great relationship with a bank that's doing business with them. You guys have done a lot because of what they've enabled you to do. And I told you early on, like, borrow as much from them as you can because you had a really special deal.
Yeah.
And you were doing construction to perm loans or semi-perm loans. They would lend you the money to buy it and fix it.
Yep.
And then they'd turn it into a long term, and you'd have a 5-year balloon.
And on the first few, I even got to cash out on those, where I'd buy it, renovate it with their money, and then when I got it rented, they'd give me more money. They stopped doing that, crazy. But they continued to pay for the purchase and the renovation. So that was great. And the way David, my partner, got those, his full-time job is making relationships with bankers. So that is what he does. He's going around the country meeting people. He's taking them to dinner. He's throwing parties. He's networking 100% of his week with people like that. And that's how he found this relationship. And he's cultivated it, and he uses it in a ton of different businesses. And the power of networking is incredible. What you can achieve when you know the right people, because everything is just people. Yep. Banks are people. We're people. The sellers you're trying to buy properties from, they're just people. The government's just people. It's all about who you know.
Yeah. So we got about 5 minutes. We like to go about an hour.
Yep.
We'll keep going for a little while longer if you've got more questions. But this has been fun. This has been a great conversation.
And if you want to learn more about this, join our school community. I think a lot of the guys in the comments here are from school, but tell your friends if you are getting value from this and you like us, tell your friends about it. It's free. There's only, who do you want to do real estate with? Grow the community, educate your friends, educate your family, and do it all here with us. And, hopefully we can help.
And we said earlier, we're trying to have the largest real estate community on the platform there. And we're on the leaderboard. We started out at like 2,600. We're down to
1,084 right now.
So we're growing fast. We've got about 90 or 100 people in the community.
We should hit 100 members today if you guys can send out some text messages.
I was going to say, I have invited probably at least half of the people that are there.
Yep.
And then the other half have either come through school or come through the YouTube channel and the videos that we do. So you guys, I would encourage you, the ones that are on the platform, we want to invite anybody who is doing real estate to this community so that when someone has a question about DSCR loans, there is more than just McKenna and Robbie there to answer these questions.
Yeah.
And the sub 2 stuff. I mean, we'll have a dynamic platform that's interactive that really can catapult your real estate investing career. So I encourage you guys to do like I did and invite your friends. So with me, I've been doing this for 26 years. I know a lot of people who I've done deals with. So I just went through and said, hey, I think you'd fit in this community. Come and join. I would please encourage anybody who's already on the community to do the same thing.
And something too in the community, guys, that we would love to encourage. If you have a deal that you're analyzing and you aren't quite sure how to get your head around it, how to do the financing, what terms to offer, is this a good deal at all? Put the information in the school and we will go through it with you. You know, we just need to know. I mean, photos definitely help, but photos, purchase price, how much you're going to spend on the renovation, what's it worth after. And we can tell you a lot just from those 4 points of info. And, you know, obviously the info needs to be correct. You need to have good comparables. You need to have good renovation numbers. But we'll be happy to talk about deal structures that would work for you. If it's a good deal at all, if it's something we would do. I mean, he spends all day looking at properties. I am really trying to focus on growing the school community now, but I've looked at thousands of houses, and that's what you do. You look at a house, you run the numbers, you say yes or no. And usually how I do it, I look at a house, I run the numbers, I say, oh, I'll need to offer 150,000 less than they're asking. I send the offer, and then I go on to the next one. It's a good way to do it.
And a lot of times we're looking for, when I'm looking at the houses, I'm looking for things that are disqualifiers, right?
Yep.
Like I want to get to a no as fast as I can, either because I've made an offer and it's rejected, or I've found something that turns me off, like there's an encroachment in Puerto Rico that I, don't want to fight with my neighbor over, or it's a Restore Republico house, and I don't really believe that they're going to ever sell me the house. So I just move on to the next one. You guys, you said it really well earlier. You can kill yourself beating your head against the wall, trying to force something to become a good deal.
Yep.
And unless you're able to buy it, none of them are good deals. So I encourage you to look at the stuff that you're able to buy way more than I would try to find people who aren't trying to sell the properties.
Yeah. And if you are doing that, it's a numbers game. You aren't talking to 2 people, you're talking to 2,000.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly right.
Well, and Don, any other good questions in there? Looks like we're closing up, and thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, we had a pretty good conversation here. That was a lot of fun. Hit that like button on just hit that like button.
Yeah, on whatever
platform you're on, hit that like button. It helps with the algorithm no matter where you're watching from. So hit that like button. If you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, we would love to have you do that.
Yep.
And check us out on school, guys. This is what we're passionate about. We want to do this, but we want to do more of it. We want to provide more value. So that's the idea behind going onto the school platform. And we're going to build an amazing community where we can do deals together.
Absolutely. We've already done deals with community members. I don't know if you saw the video with Justin. Check it out on YouTube, but it's pretty inspirational and pretty exciting.
And it's exactly what we're talking about and what we're wanting to do. I mean, we're getting a young entrepreneur into becoming a real estate investor, and it's a lot of fun for us. And so that's what we hope to do more of through this platform.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, guys.
Is that it? God bless.